During the tough times of the past, American families relied on vegetables that modern grocery stores have completely forgotten. These resilient plants helped our grandparents and great-grandparents survive through challenging years while providing incredible nutrition. Today, we'll journey through 25 strange yet remarkable vegetables that were once staples in gardens across America. These forgotten treasures might just be the key to self-sufficiency that our ancestors understood so well. Imagine walking through your grandparents' garden and discovering a root that tastes exactly like fresh seafood. That's the magic of salsify, often called the oyster plant. Back when coastal seafood couldn't reach inland America, clever gardeners grew this remarkable root vegetable that mimicked the flavor of fresh oysters. Unlike modern vegetables that spoil quickly, salsify had an incredible ability to remain fresh all winter long. Families would leave it right in the ground during cold months, treating the soil as nature's perfect refrigerator. Whenever they needed a special meal, they'd simply dig up what they needed and leave the rest safely underground. What made salsify twice as valuable was that nothing went to waste. Families used both the oyster-flavored roots and the nutritious greens, getting two vegetables from a single plant. In a time when making the most of every resource mattered, salsify was truly a garden champion that brought a touch of luxury to even the simplest tables. Before modern vegetables dominated our gardens, American families grew an impressive silvery blue plant called cardoon that looked like something from another world. This dramatic vegetable, standing tall with its architectural leaves, was actually the unsung cousin of the artichoke. What made cardoon special was its remarkable cold tolerance. When winter frosts killed most garden vegetables, cardoon stood strong, continuing to provide fresh food even as snow began to fall. The large, celery-like stalks were wrapped in paper or cloth to blanch them, transforming their flavor into something remarkably delicate and artichoke-like. Grandmothers across America would braise these stalks with a bit of broth, creating a dish that tasted far more luxurious than their simple ingredients suggested. The plants were perennial too, returning year after year without replanting, making them incredibly valuable for families who needed reliable food sources. As modern convenience foods took over, this magnificent vegetable quietly disappeared from our gardens, taking its winter resilience with it. When snow still blanketed much of the garden, a remarkable plant called Good King Henry was already pushing its shoots upward, earning its royal name by being among the first to feed hungry families after winter. This perennial vegetable held a special place in American gardens for its incredible early-season productivity. The magic of Good King Henry was in its versatility. Its tender spring shoots could be harvested and prepared just like asparagus, while its arrow-shaped leaves made perfect spinach substitutes. Some families even called it poor man's asparagus, but there was nothing poor about its rich nutrition and reliable growth. Once established in a garden corner, Good King Henry would return faithfully each year, growing stronger and more productive with each passing season. It required almost no care, thriving in spots where fussier vegetables failed. Before modern supermarkets offered year-round produce, this persistent plant provided the first fresh vitamins of spring, when families needed them most after winter's preserved foods. Long before European settlers arrived, Native Americans were cultivating a remarkable tuber that would later become a garden staple. Jerusalem artichokes, neither from Jerusalem nor actually artichokes, were America's original survival food, taught to early settlers by indigenous tribes who understood their incredible value. Unlike other root crops that required yearly replanting, Jerusalem artichokes performed a kind of garden magic. Plant them once and they'd return year after year, multiplying underground and creating an expanding food supply with zero additional work. Their nutty, slightly sweet flavor came from inulin rather than starch, making them taste almost like water chestnuts when sliced raw into salads. What truly set Jerusalem artichokes apart was their remarkable winter harvesting ability. Even in frozen soil, families could dig these nutritious tubers all winter long, taking what they needed while leaving the rest safely stored in nature's perfect root cellar, the ground itself. This reliability during hard times made Jerusalem artichokes a true American treasure that deserved far more recognition than it receives today. Hidden beneath the soil in America's past gardens grew a mysterious black root that few modern gardeners have ever seen. Scorzonera, with its dark outer skin hiding snow-white flesh within, was once valued more highly than gold for one remarkable reason: it could be stored for an incredible 2 years without losing flavor or nutritional value. Unlike other root vegetables that withered and softened in storage, scorzonera seemed to defy time, staying crisp and delicious month after month. The sweet, delicate flavor had hints of artichoke and asparagus, making it a treasured ingredient when fresh garden produce was just a distant memory during winter months. Practical gardeners discovered that scorzonera also had an unusual resistance to pests and disease, growing beautifully even in less than perfect soil conditions. While modern vegetables demand perfect growing conditions, this forgotten black root quietly provided families with reliable nutrition through multiple seasons, asking little and giving much in return, a trait our ancestors valued but modern gardens have tragically forgotten. Imagine a celery plant that grows as tall as a person, produces for years without replanting, and packs so much flavor that a single leaf can season an entire pot of soup. That's lovage, the forgotten seasoning giant that once graced gardens across America before modern celery took over our supermarket shelves. What made lovage extraordinary was its incredible productivity and perennial nature. While modern gardeners struggle to grow finicky celery plants, our grandparents simply planted lovage once and harvested it for up to 25 years from the same plant. Every part was useful: the hollow stems for vegetable dishes, the leaves for seasoning, seeds as a spice, and even the roots could be eaten as a vegetable. The intense celery-like flavor was so concentrated that families would dry lovage leaves in summer, storing them in glass jars to bring garden-fresh taste to winter soups and stews. In an era when spices were expensive and hard to come by, having this flavor factory growing right outside the kitchen door made lovage an essential part of self-sufficient gardens that modern convenience has sadly pushed aside. Long before protein, supplements, and health food stores, Native Americans across eastern North America harvested an incredible climbing vine with an astonishing secret. Its underground tubers contained up to 17% protein, 3 times more than potatoes and higher than any other root vegetable known. These American groundnuts, Apios americana, became life-saving food during the early Pilgrim settlements, with historical records showing they helped prevent starvation during those first difficult years. Unlike modern vegetables that provide mostly carbohydrates, groundnuts offered a complete protein package, making them incredibly valuable for families who couldn't always afford meat. What made groundnuts truly remarkable was their persistence and expansion. Once established, a patch would spread underground, creating more tubers year after year without any additional work. Families could harvest some while leaving others to grow, creating a self-perpetuating food supply that survived harsh winters, floods, and even droughts. This Native American superfood, once a reliable protein source across the continent, now grows wild and forgotten, a lost treasure of nutritional self-sufficiency. Before spinach dominated American gardens, families welcomed the appearance of a remarkable volunteer plant called goosefoot, or lamb's quarters. This wild-looking green with its distinctive dusty white coating on the leaves packed more nutrition than almost any cultivated vegetable, with iron levels that outperformed spinach and calcium content that rivaled milk. The beauty of goosefoot was that it required absolutely no planting or care. It simply appeared in spring, growing rapidly and producing tender leaves that could be eaten raw in salads or cooked like spinach. During times when garden seeds were precious and sometimes scarce, goosefoot provided reliable nutrition without demanding any resources in return. Practical gardeners discovered that goosefoot stayed tender and productive even during summer heat, waves that caused spinach to bolt and turn bitter. By allowing some plants to go to seed while harvesting others, families ensured a continuous food supply that cost nothing to maintain. This remarkable volunteer vegetable, once welcomed into gardens across America, is now sadly dismissed as a mere weed, a tragic misunderstanding of one of nature's most generous gifts. Among the strangest sights in old American gardens were plants that seemed to defy gravity, onions that grew bulbs not just underground, but on top of their stalks. These Egyptian walking onions earned their unusual name because the top-heavy plants would eventually bend over, allowing the topset bulbs to touch the ground and root, walking across the garden over time. What made these onions incredibly valuable was their perpetual nature. Once planted, they created an endless supply of onions without ever needing to purchase seeds or sets again. Families could harvest the bottom bulbs like regular onions, eat the hollow stems like green onions, and still have the top sets to propagate more plants or to pickle like pearl onions. These strange yet practical onions provided three different harvests throughout the year and survived weather extremes that would kill modern onion varieties. In an era when self-sufficiency mattered and store-bought vegetable starts weren't available, these walking onions ensured that families always had the essential allium flavors for their cooking, steadily expanding their territory year after year with absolutely no effort from the gardener. Before refined sugar became commonplace, American gardens often contained a perennial root vegetable called skirret that produced clusters of sweet white roots. These finger-sized roots contained natural sugars that made them taste like a cross between carrots and parsnips, but with a distinctive sweetness that earned them the nickname sugar root in many communities. What made skirret especially valuable was its perennial nature. Once planted, it would return year after year, producing more and larger root clusters with each passing season. During times when sugar was an expensive luxury, these naturally sweet roots provided a welcome flavor to winter meals and could even be used to brew sweet beer or make candy for children. The roots stayed perfectly fresh when left in the ground through winter, creating nature's own root cellar that families could harvest from whenever needed. Unlike today's vegetables that demand perfect conditions, skirret thrived in difficult soils where other root crops would fail. This resilient, sweet perennial, once a fixture in American gardens for its reliable production year after year, gradually disappeared as modern sugar became cheaper and gardening shifted toward annual vegetables. Before beauty standards dominated produce sections, American gardens embraced a gnarly, knobbed root vegetable that looked nothing like the perfect specimens in today's grocery stores. Celeriac, often called celery root, might have been the ugliest vegetable in the garden, but its remarkable storage ability made it worth its weight in gold. Unlike its finicky cousin celery, celeriac grew easily in most climates and could be stored for an incredible 6 to 8 months in a simple root cellar. Its delicate celery flavor actually improved during storage, becoming sweeter and more complex as winter progressed. Families valued it for bringing fresh flavor to meals long after the garden was buried under snow. This homely root packed a nutritional punch that put modern vegetables to shame, providing significant amounts of vitamin K, phosphorus, and essential minerals that helped keep families healthy through winter months. While today's consumers might pass it by due to its appearance, our grandparents understood that true value often lies beneath the surface, a wisdom we'd be wise to rediscover as we seek more sustainable food systems. When summer temperatures soared and spinach bolted and turned bitter, auroch stepped in as the forgotten heat fighter of American gardens. With its stunning purple or green-gold leaves, this remarkable plant kept producing tender greens throughout summer when most leafy vegetables had long since failed. Unlike modern greens that demand perfect conditions, auroch thrived in poor soil, tolerated drought, and even grew in salty conditions where other vegetables couldn't survive. Its mild, spinach-like flavor with slight mineral notes made it perfect for summer salads and cooked greens when other options were scarce. The most practical aspect of auroch was its self-seeding nature. Once established in a garden, it would return year after year on its own, appearing exactly when needed as temperatures became too hot for spinach. This reliability through extreme weather made auroch invaluable for families who depended on their gardens for daily nutrition. As modern agriculture focused on shipping friendly vegetables, this heat-loving superfood gradually disappeared from our gardens, taking its remarkable resilience with it. While modern gardens grow parsley just for its leaves, American families of the past knew a secret variety that provided both herb and vegetable from the same plant. Hamburg parsley, also called root parsley, produced a thick white taproot that looked similar to a parsnip while still offering the same flavorful leaves as regular parsley above ground. This practical two-in-one plant allowed families to harvest fresh parsley leaves all summer long for seasoning and vitamin C, then dig up the substantial roots in fall for storage through winter. The roots had a wonderful earthy flavor with hints of celery and parsley that added depth to winter soups and stews, when fresh vegetables were just a memory. What made Hamburg parsley especially valuable was its incredible storage life. The roots would keep for months in a simple root cellar while still providing essential nutrition during winter months. This garden multitasker, once a staple in practical American gardens, has been nearly forgotten as single-purpose vegetables took over our modern growing spaces, a loss of efficiency our grandparents would find puzzling. The small red radishes. In today's salads bear little resemblance to the massive storage radishes our grandparents grew to feed their families through winter. Varieties like black Spanish, China rose, and daikon could grow as large as turnips, with single roots weighing up to 2 pounds and storing perfectly for months in a simple root cellar. Unlike their quick-growing spring cousins, these winter radishes were planted in late summer and allowed to develop slowly into the fall, resulting in dense, nutrient-rich roots that would keep families fed long after other fresh vegetables were gone. Their flavor mellowed during storage, becoming sweeter and less pungent as winter progressed. Practical gardeners discovered these giants served multiple purposes. The roots could be sliced for winter meals or grated for storage while the abundant greens were cooked like spinach, providing vital nutrients when fresh produce was scarce. Some varieties even acted as natural pest repellents, protecting neighboring crops from insects. When every garden row needed to provide maximum value, these multi-purpose giants earned their place in American gardens, a practical approach to food security that modern single-use vegetables have unfortunately replaced. During America's hardest economic times, an unsung hero grew quietly in backyard gardens, the humble rutabaga. While it might look like just another root vegetable, this powerhouse earned the nickname famine food for its ability to produce enormous yields even in poor soil and difficult growing conditions. What made rutabagas extraordinary was their nutritional density. A single cup provided more vitamin C than oranges, along with significant amounts of potassium and fiber. During times when fresh fruit was expensive or unavailable, these sturdy roots helped prevent deficiency diseases that threatened many families during lean years. Perhaps the most valuable quality was their remarkable storage life. Rutabagas would keep for 4 to 6 months in a simple root cellar, staying firm and nutritious long after other stored vegetables had deteriorated. Families could plant them in late summer, harvest before heavy frost, and have a reliable food source that would last until spring gardens began producing again. This practical, long-keeping vegetable that helped countless families through difficult times deserves far more recognition than it receives in today's vegetable kingdom. Few modern gardeners have ever seen the enormous root vegetable that once dominated American family farms, the mangel wurzel or mangold. These giant beets could grow to an astonishing size, with single roots often weighing 20 pounds or more, providing an incredible amount of food from each plant. Unlike the sweet beets we know today, mangels were grown primarily for their remarkable productivity and storage ability. A single row could produce hundreds of pounds of food that stored perfectly through winter in simple root cellars, or even just piled in a corner of a cool basement covered with straw. What made these giants truly practical was their dual purpose: nature. Families would eat some themselves, cooking them like regular beets to bring out their natural sweetness, while also using them to feed livestock through winter when other feed was scarce. In an era when farm animals were essential to family survival, having a vegetable that could feed both humans and livestock represented the practical thinking that defined American self-sufficiency. These enormous roots that once helped feed a nation have all but disappeared, replaced by vegetables with far less practical impact. Along America's coastlines, a remarkable perennial vegetable once thrived in gardens where the salty air would kill most other food plants. Sea kale, with its beautiful blue-green leaves and white spring flowers, provided coastal families with 2 distinct harvests from the same long-lived plants. In early spring, the new shoots were blanched by covering them with pots, producing tender white stems that tasted like a cross between asparagus and hazelnuts. a gourmet treat that arrived weeks before other spring vegetables. Later, the mature leaves could be harvested and cooked like cabbage, providing fresh greens throughout the growing season. What made sea kale incredibly valuable was its perennial nature and salt tolerance. Once planted, it would return year after year for decades, with some plants producing food for over 20 years without replanting. This reliability and longevity made sea kale essential for coastal families, turning challenging growing conditions into an advantage. As modern agriculture focused on annual vegetables that needed replanting each year, this resilient perennial slowly disappeared from our coastal gardens, taking generations of sustainability with it. In the cool seasons of spring and fall, American gardens once contained a remarkable root vegetable that tasted like a blend of potato and anise. Turnip-rooted chervil, with its delicate fern-like foliage above ground and starchy aromatic roots below, offered flavors that no modern vegetable can match. What made this forgotten root special was its growing pattern. Planted in fall, it would survive winter underground, then produce its harvest in early spring when other vegetables were just being planted. This clever timing filled the crucial hunger gap between stored winter foods and new spring harvests, providing fresh nutrition when families needed it most. The roots contained unique compounds that gave them a delicate anise flavor while still providing substantial calories and nutrients. Unlike many fussier vegetables, turnip-rooted chervil actually preferred poorer soils, turning challenging garden conditions into an advantage. This remarkable timing advantage and unique flavor profile made it a valued part of seasonal eating, cycles that modern year-round agriculture has largely forgotten, a loss of both practical food security and culinary diversity. Before potatoes arrived from South America, Native Americans across eastern North America cultivated a remarkable perennial plant that produced both edible beans above ground and starchy tubers below. Hopness, Apios americana, also called potato bean or groundnut, represented the perfect combination of protein and carbohydrates in a single plant. The protein-rich tubers, containing up to 17% protein, far higher than potatoes, grew in strings, underground like beads on a necklace, while edible beans formed in pods above ground later in the season. This dual harvest made hopness extremely valuable for food security, providing both immediate nutrition and storable food for winter. What made hopness truly remarkable was its persistence and expansion. Once established, a patch would spread and become more productive each year without any additional work. Even after harsh winters or flooding, these resilient plants would return, creating a permanent food system that required minimal care. Early American settlers relied heavily on this native food plant during their first difficult years, a debt largely forgotten as imported European crops replaced these indigenous food systems. One of the strangest sights in old American gardens was a plant that produced both nutritious greens and bright red berries on the same stems. Strawberry spinach, with its triangular leaves and clusters of jewel-like fruits, provided two completely different foods from a single plant, a garden efficiency our ancestors valued highly. The tender young leaves could be harvested throughout spring and early summer, providing nutritious greens for salads or cooking. As the weather warmed, the plant developed small red berries that looked like miniature strawberries, adding a fresh, mild mulberry flavor to summer meals when most greens had become bitter in the heat. What made strawberry spinach especially valuable was its incredible drought resistance and ability to self-seed. Once established in a garden, it would return year after year on its own, appearing exactly when needed in spring without any effort from the gardener. During times when garden success determined whether a family would have enough food, this reliable dual-purpose plant earned its place in practical gardens across America, a clever food system solution that deserves rediscovery. Long before nutritional supplements lined store shelves, American gardens often contained a remarkable native plant with edible roots, shoots, leaves, and seeds. Evening primrose, with its showy yellow flowers that opened at dusk, was far more than just an ornamental. It was a complete food system, growing in a single plant. The first-year roots could be harvested in fall and cooked like parsnips, providing starchy nutrition through winter. Young spring shoots were gathered and eaten like asparagus, while tender leaves made salads or cooking greens throughout the growing season. By the second year, the plant produced seed pods containing tiny seeds rich in valuable gamma-linolenic acid, nutrients we now take expensive supplements to obtain. Native Americans had used this versatile plant for generations, teaching early settlers about its remarkable food and medicinal properties. During hard times, having a single plant that provided multiple harvests throughout the seasons represented the practical wisdom that defined traditional American gardening, making the most of every garden space and extending harvests across the entire growing season. When summer temperatures soared and traditional greens withered, American gardeners turned to a remarkable climbing vine that thrived in the heat. Malabar spinach, not true spinach but a heat-loving vine with thick, succulent leaves, would produce abundant greens throughout the hottest months when most leafy vegetables had long since failed. Unlike space-hungry traditional greens, this clever climber grew vertically on trellises or fences, producing more food per square foot than almost any other garden vegetable. The glossy leaves stayed tender even in extreme heat, providing fresh nutrition when gardens were otherwise struggling to produce. The thick, mucilaginous quality of the leaves, similar to okra, made them perfect for thickening summer soups and stews without added flour or cornstarch. During times when every garden inch needed to produce maximum nutrition, this vertical vegetable strategy represented the space-efficient thinking that defined practical American gardens. As air conditioning and year-round vegetable shipping changed our relationship with seasonal eating, this heat-loving vine gradually disappeared from our gardens, taking its summer resilience with it. Among the most beloved garden plants for children of the past were ground cherries, small fruits that grew inside papery husks that looked like tiny Chinese lanterns. These remarkable plants, relatives of tomatoes, produced marble-sized fruits with a unique flavor like pineapple and vanilla combined, bringing unexpected sweetness to gardens across America. What made ground cherries especially valuable was their natural storage ability. The papery husks served as perfect natural wrappers, allowing the fruits to store for 3 to 4 months without refrigeration if left in their husks in a cool, dry place. During times when fresh fruit was scarce, these naturally wrapped treats provided rare sweetness through winter months. The plants were incredibly productive, with a single bush often yielding hundreds of fruits, and their self-seeding nature meant they would return year after year without replanting. This combination of natural packaging, storage ability, and perennial return made ground cherries a practical garden choice that brought both nutrition and joy to American families. A perfect example of the practical thinking that defined traditional garden wisdom. Before commercially grown onion sets dominated gardening, American families relied on a remarkable type of onion that performed a kind of underground magic. Potato onions, also called multiplier onions, would transform. A single planted bulb would divide underground to produce a cluster of 8 to 12 new onions by harvest time. This multiplying ability solved one of the biggest challenges of self-sufficient gardening, producing your own seed stock for the next year. Families would save the smallest onions from each harvest to replant, eating the larger ones and maintaining their own onion supply indefinitely without ever purchasing seeds or sets again. These reliable onions were incredibly cold-hardy, could be planted in either fall or spring, and stored for up to 8 months in a simple root cellar. During periods when seed supplies were uncertain or money was tight, having vegetables that would multiply themselves year after year represented the practical self-sufficiency that defined American garden wisdom. This incredible multiplication system that once fed generations has been nearly lost as commercial agriculture replaced household food production. Before today's stringless celery-dominated markets, American gardens often contained a more resilient, more flavorful predecessor called smallage or cutting celery. This forgotten vegetable looked like a cross between celery and parsley, with slender stalks and deep green leaves packed with far more flavor than modern celery varieties. What made smallage especially valuable was its cut-and-come-again nature. Families would harvest outer stalks as needed, while the plant continued, producing new growth from the center for months on end. Unlike modern celery that requires perfect growing conditions, smallage thrived in average garden soil and tolerated both heat and cold that would kill its finicky descendants. The intense flavor meant a little went a long way in soups, stews, and other dishes, and the leaves could be dried for winter use when fresh vegetables were scarce. During times when garden reliability determined whether families would have enough food, this productive, low-maintenance vegetable represented the practical wisdom that defined traditional American gardening, choosing varieties for their resilience and productivity rather than mere appearance. When winter threatened to eliminate fresh greens from the diet, American gardens often contained a remarkable plant that actually thrived in cold weather. American cress, sometimes called upland cress or early yellow rocket, produced vitamin-rich leaves even through snow and frost, becoming sweeter as temperatures dropped. Unlike most garden vegetables that died back in cold weather, this native cress could be harvested throughout winter in many regions, providing crucial vitamin C when fresh options were otherwise unavailable. Its ability to grow in partial shade meant it could be planted in spots where summer vegetables wouldn't thrive, maximizing the productivity of every garden inch. The peppery leaves were used like today's arugula, adding bright flavor to winter meals and providing immune-boosting nutrients during cold and flu season. This cold season productivity meant families could have fresh greens nearly year-round without greenhouses or special equipment, a practical approach to seasonal eating that modern gardening has largely forgotten as we've become dependent on. Shipped produce from warmer climates. These 25 forgotten vegetables aren't just plants, they're the embodiment of practical wisdom that helped families through both good times and bad across American history. Each one was chosen not for its beauty or uniformity, but for its ability to provide reliable nutrition with minimal input and maximum output. Today, as interest in self-sufficiency grows, and more people recognize the value of diverse, resilient food systems, these forgotten vegetables are finding their way back into gardens across America. Seed savers, small heritage farms, and dedicated gardeners are preserving these varieties, understanding that the practical wisdom of the past may be exactly what we need for a more secure food future. Which of these forgotten vegetables surprised you the most? Could you see yourself growing any of them in your own garden? Hit that like button if you found this journey through America's vegetable history valuable, and subscribe for more forgotten wisdom from our ancestors. Until next time, when we'll explore more practical knowledge that helped generations of Americans thrive through challenging times.